Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share great conversations with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how and where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits that this has created. You see, the truth is that everyone invests. Every minute of every day, we're investing our time, our skills, our energy and our money in something. Some of us are investing consciously, some unconsciously, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, and sometimes for no impact. Get Invested will help you to start living by design, not by default. I'm going to help you to make it happen, not let it happen. You will hear the top tips on how you can live with conscious intent so that you can live more, work less, and leave a living legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living your dream, not someone else's. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at bushymartin.com.au/get invested. Thanks for listening, and now let's get invested. Hi, freedom fighters. Are you dreaming your dream? Are you working hard to make your dreams reality? Or are you just busy being busy? Are you making room for the lighter side of life? And most importantly, are you enjoying your one and only life? Now, these are great questions, aren't they? These are just some of the questions I take the time to reflect on at this time of the year in order to check in with how my life is actually tracking. What about you? Do you take time out of your hectic hustle to recharge your magnifying magnet and your compelling life vision and recalibrate your life compass to ensure every decision and choice you make on a day-to-day basis is taking you closer to your ideal future? If you haven't, then I strongly recommend that you do. And if you haven't listened to the other recent Bush bonusodes on living by design or taken time out to crystallise your life vision, following the suggestions and steps I lay out for you in my book, The Freedom Formula, which I'll bet you've had good intentions of doing but just haven't got around to yet, then today I'm going to help you kickstart the process of turning your dreams into reality by unpacking the art of asking the right questions. Because it's the quality of the questions that you ask that will determine the quality of the answers and solutions that you come up with, which will in turn determine the quality of your life and where it's heading. And to help you with this, I'm going to draw on and adapt the excellent work done on this subject by Carolyn Reedy, who has written a great book of the same name, The Art of Asking the Right Questions. You see, every year around this time, Sonia and I take time out to reflect on the year that was and the year that will be in the context of our long-term vision. We generally take a few days out in a beautiful remote location with long, uninterrupted natural views of hills and valleys overlooking the water. The perfect setting to feel gratitude for everything that we have and to get creative on where we're at, where we're heading, and what, if anything, do we need to do differently. And the success of all this revolves around the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. How good are you at asking yourself and others great questions? Well, in concert with Carolyn Reedy's Irish lineage, whenever I take this precious time out to reflect and question myself and my life, my great-great-grandmother's wise words resonate in my mind. And little Granny, as we used to call her, was certainly wise, as she lived to the ripe old age of 103 and looked and acted very much like a female version of Mahatma Gandhi, God rest her soul. And Caroline's grandfather and my little granny both echoed a great old Irish saying, which comes from our background, which is that you need 3 bones to enjoy the journey of life. You need a wishbone to dream the dream. You need a backbone to work hard to make it happen. And you need a funny bone to enjoy the lighter side of life and not take yourself or anything else too seriously. This old saying helps to reflect and refocus and brings me back to think about and contemplate on what's really important in life. So as you listen to this episode over the next few minutes, I invite you to quieten your mind of all other distracting thoughts and think deeply about your life and where it's heading by asking yourself some of the questions that I posed at the start. Are you dreaming your dream? Are you working hard to make your dreams a reality? And are you enjoying your life's journey? These great questions deserve time for us to press pause and think deeply, and then really listen slowly by giving space for the answers deep inside our hearts and souls to rise to the surface of our minds, because the answers that emerge will change your life if you allow them. For, as Geoffrey Chaucer famously said, time and tide wait for no one. As I've said repeatedly on Get Invested, time is our most valuable resource in this busy, manic lives that we live, and we're all time poor. So if it's important enough, we make the time, but if it's not, then we make excuses. So which will you choose? Will you make the time or make the excuse? This is a small choice that will have massive impacts on your life's future. So when you think about how you spend your time, I invite you to reflect and start by asking yourself these simple questions. Are you happy? Having lived through a life-changing pandemic, what are you going to do differently? And what's stopping you? Now, these aren't easy questions to answer, but it's really important that we take the time to ask ourselves these questions now, because the answers will give you an opportunity to change your future for the better. It's great to ask questions of our past so that we can action the learnings, but it's even more important to ask questions of our future so that we get into the driver's seat of our destinies for the next exciting chapter of our lives. What an exciting opportunity for all of us to really reflect and make our time important. In terms of the past tense, we don't want to look back and think when it's too late, what would I have done differently? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I take the opportunity? Because by then, it's too late for these questions. It's simple but not easy to ask ourselves really deep, meaningful, game-changing questions. So, as Caroline Reedy suggests, be kind when you ask yourself, and be even kinder when you hear your answers emerge. As Yeats once said, tread softly because you tread on your dreams. And to ask great questions, we need to rediscover our inner child, because children have the power of curiosity as a natural wonder within them. Do you remember when you were a child, or do you remember your own children or your nieces and nephews constantly asking, why? Why this? Why that? Why? Because kids ask questions without any thought, and they often challenge us. Do you remember asking questions, or your kids asking you questions like, why is the sky blue? How are the stars formed? Why are you so old? To children, these are simple questions that need to be asked and actually deserve a good answer. So it's really important that we feed our minds with the best positivity and with the best knowledge, and that we're really open to learning. And it's also really important that when we're talking to ourselves, that we're really kind and positive, because our subconscious programming is listening all the time. I was blessed enough to grow up in a family where the world was your oyster. Mum used to tell me that you're destined for great things. You can become the Prime Minister or a high priest if you want to be. This was a powerful, limitless self-belief that was deeply ingrained in me from childhood, and all stemmed from asking and answering great questions. The power of asking and listening and giving those around us the opportunity to believe. When we reflect on our great philosophers, great entrepreneurs and great innovators, they all share the gift of the art of asking amazing questions. They don't accept the here and now as acceptable. They're constantly thinking about what could be better, how could they improve things, and why is that problem not yet solved? As we think about what's stopping us, we often turn to things like blue sky thinking or brainstorming. But all of these are simply varying ways of thinking about boundaries and without boundaries. Asking the question and being open and non-critical to the potential of what the magic in the answers can lead to, without the limitations of the what-ifs, the what-buts, and the why-nots getting in the way. This ability to improve both ourselves and everything around us is a magical gift, and by asking the right magical questions, it unlocks that potential within us. Ronald Dahl once said that those who don't believe in magic will never find it. Rings really true here. So today, let's think about how we might believe in a bit more magic in terms of what we might be able to achieve ourselves, and also the magic in the world around us when we think about the right questions to ask. As Einstein used to say, any fool can ask questions, but it takes a genius to ask the right questions. I believe that we all have the gift of being able to ask the right questions, and today we hope to unlock the magic that's going to give us all of this. As we start to think about the chance of asking the best questions, begin by making sure they're open questions that require much more than simple yes or no responses. Begin with who, what, how, but not always when. I remember back when I was 15 and had just finished high school when I received my Year 12 matriculation public examination board results. I was proud of myself and the hard work and countless hours of blood, sweat and tears that I put into getting these results. So when I announced my results with a beaming smile to the family, I expected everyone to say, "Well done, Johnny, we're proud of you." Which everyone did, with the exception of little Granny. She sat quietly in a rocking chair in the corner of the room, looking at me with those wise eyes that always penetrated right into the window of my soul. And when everyone else had finished, she quietly asked, "But are you happy?" It's a question that stopped me in my tracks then and continues to stop me in my tracks now. Little Granny knew that I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my results, so the results themselves were never going to make me happy. But little Granny asked the right question in the right context at the right time, and then she fell silent and allowed the space to really hear my answer. That question made me reflect and decide that I had an even bigger question to answer, and this was an amazing gift to give. The art of asking the right question combined with the art of really listening. Magical questions, asking the right question in the right context at the right time, can unstick people. They can untangle our thoughts. They can give us empathy, give us self-belief. They can unlock us, and they can bring us further to the next step. Great questions are very powerful, aren't they? But without the associated art of actively listening, questions don't come to life, and we don't end up maximising their potential. So we also need to master the complementary art of truly listening alongside the art of asking great questions. And the hard thing about the art of listening is that we just don't make time for it. In the hustle and bustle of our forever busy lives, where any spare second is consumed with Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and the multitude of other social media feeds and time-wasting, mind-numbing apps, every waking second is absorbed in some form of busyness. But listening requires us to create time and silence for the answers to emerge, to be fully and absolutely present. As Reddy observes, it's really interesting that when you spell listen and you spell silent, both words are made from exactly the same letters. There's something in that. But in our always-on 24/7 world, we've forgotten how to be silent. And if we want great conversations through the art of really listening, then we need to really master and get comfortable with being silent. It's another reason why I now do 20-minute transcendence meditations every day, to create space and silence. The whole art of conversation is something that we think about to bring clear understanding to our life journey. The more we listen, the more we give space to the thought and information that's coming our way, then the clearer our understanding becomes. Over the last 4 years of my work as a podcast host and anchor on both Get Invested and the Realty Talk Show, which you can check out at realty.com.au/channels, I've learnt firsthand the power of giving my guests the opportunity to be truly heard, and this is really powerful. By making time and space to unlock a person's need to be listened to and really heard is absolutely priceless. And I really love it when my guests often say after the interview that that's the first time they've really felt listened to and heard. That ability to make someone feel that they're really been held and listened to is absolutely priceless. So this is a powerful gift to offer somebody, isn't it? And the best part is that asking and then really listening is absolutely free. And it's important that when we listen, that we don't assume or presume the other's answer. Unfortunately, after we ask a question, we have a tendency just to grab bits of information and make up in advance what we think the other's story is as we start thinking in advance about what we're going to ask them and talk about next. So instead of falling into the presumption pitfall, we need to just ask and then stop and really listen to what's being said. Each and every one of us is a complex and dynamic individual, so trying to guess what somebody else is thinking is difficult, and unfortunately we often get it wrong. As Reddy says, psychic communication doesn't work, which means that we're physically trying or psychically trying to think what the other person is actually trying to tell us. Instead, think about how we could just simply ask the question and then really listen to the answer. It's actually much simpler, isn't it? But still, we don't do this anywhere near as much as we need to. So, like Reddy, I believe that there are times in our lives when we need to press pause and ask ourselves really important questions. Like the time that little granny asked me if I was happy after I got my Year 12 matriculation results. And instead of thinking, what would I do with the results, this great question triggered me to ask myself a series of other great questions like, well, what am I good at? What are my natural traits, my natural skills, my natural talents? Because in taking the time to listen to my heart's answers to these questions, I would never work a bad day in my life because I've always done work that I naturally love and I'm naturally really good at. It's these questions that led me to become an architect and then change careers as my vision and goals continued to evolve. Because I kept asking myself great questions that deserve great answers. But sometimes we're so busy on the roller coaster of life that we forget to press pause and ask these great questions. We all want to enjoy a positive culture, that special, intangible feeling that's in the room with our families and in our work environments. We want things to be as positive as possible, and one easy way to do this is just simply ask, what are we doing well? What do we need to start doing? And what do we need to stop doing? And the exciting thing is that the answers are always generally in the room. All we need to do is simply ask great questions and then stop and prop and really listen to the answers. Just ask the question and then let your silence and pregnant pause, if necessary, encourage others to fill the gap with their answers. This brings us to a place of shared understanding where everyone has buy-in. Now, most of us have heard of emotional intelligence, but for Reddy, EQ is simply giving empathy, time and space for you to be really listened to and really heard. It's a gift that we all have the ability to give. But take a minute now to think about the last time you asked somebody, how are you? Did you really actually listen and make space for their answer? Or were you so busy that your mind was already moving on to the next thing and you didn't really give that person the time they deserve to be truly listened to and truly heard? So I invite you and challenge you that from today onwards, you'll use the question, how are you, in a much more powerful and engaging way. Ask people and then wait and really want to hear their answer, because the gift you'll give them and what you'll receive in return will be bountiful. In this world of WhatsApp, instant messaging and social media, we leave very little space for the almost forgotten art of true conversation. And for me, there's nothing more powerful than two people engaged in a real in-depth conversation. So I invite and challenge you to think about how we can reignite the power of true conversation, and in doing so, always start with asking instead of telling. And even when you're telling, make sure you're always ending with asking, because asking brings you to learn new things that you never knew, and it's also showing empathy and interest in really being a part of the conversation. As Reddy says, instead of learning to multitask, we actually need to learn to singularly task. We need to get good at actively making time and space to deeply listen. I hope today you've started to hear the magic of the art of asking great questions. And I hope you'll take some time to think about my little granny's powerful question. Are you happy? It's a game changer every time I ask it. And also remember little granny's great Irish saying that you need 3 bones to enjoy the journey of life. You need a wishbone to dream your dream. You need a backbone to work hard to make your dreams happen. And you need a funny bone to enjoy the lighter side of life. So again, I invite and challenge you to take some time to reflect and think about, are you dreaming your dream? And are you working hard to make your dreams a reality rather than just keeping busy being busy? And are you enjoying the journey of your one and only life? Because time and tide waits for no one. So, to rediscover your inner child and reignite the art of asking great questions of yourself and others, and make space and time to really listen for the answers and make space and time to get back to the art of true conversation, because this will be a game changer in your life. That's more food for thought, so let's get invested. To get a summary of all this investment gold in the show notes, just email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's hello@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.bushymartin.com.au/get invested. I look forward to joining you next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. So thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you'll live forever and live as if you'll die